Here we go, 10 days, right? Till April 2nd, crunch time, as we get set for what is going to be one of the more interesting votes we've had in this region in quite some time. There's not many where you're like, hey, this could be a coin flip, but this is certainly feels like at least it's going to be one of them. Let's welcome on and say hello to the mayor of Kansas City. Quinton Lucas is on KCMO. We have a lot to get to on that front, Mr. Mayor, but we haven't had a chance to talk to you since last week, and I know that you've heard from folks on social media about this. Take me through, I think it's more complex than people believe it is. This Supreme Court decision that sets rules on when public officials can block social media users.
Oh, yeah.
I know some of your haters, and you've admitted this, that you have blocked on social media, believe that you now need to unblock them. What would you say in response to this Supreme Court decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're completely misreading the Supreme Court decision. What that heading says, and it usually is some lazy work from the media, is largely the status quo. As we saw from a case out of the Court of Appeals that oversees New York State, Connecticut, and a few others, in Knight versus Trump, there was a case where someone sued President Trump for being blocked via his Twitter. That court found that the president couldn't block that individual, primarily because you may remember the former White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, said that President Trump's Twitter feed was the official setting of President Trump. And I actually think that was wrongly decided. You have seen courts deal with that over the years since, including the U.S. Court of Appeals for the circuit in which Missouri sits, that largely found the opposite, which was that a politician there, a state rep, could block people, a person that was harassing them consistently. I think what the Supreme Court also showed in the most recent case decided was that blocking, in that situation, a city manager blocking someone, was acceptable because the individual has First Amendment rights themselves. So to distill all of that down to a few simple things, I, Quinton Lucas, have the opportunity to have social media accounts where I can say any crazy thing I like. I can ask for money for my campaigns. I can support and endorse political candidates. I can do any number of things. That has been, if you've probably seen, what Quinton Lucas KC's Twitter account has been for years. I started it when I was running for city council years ago. I give my sports takes. I talk about political choices. I usually support, often Democratic candidates, the sort of things you cannot do from an official city account. I have an official city account where everyone it does not engage with me on my personal feed has the opportunity to look at updates from City Hall. They can do all types of things, engage and interact with city services. But no, I don't think everybody has, an unadulterated right to be able to harass you, to harass others, to use whatever type of language they deem appropriate, including slurs, in any setting that they want. They have a chance, if they wish to do that within certain First Amendment limits, to come to City Hall. They can come to a city council meeting. They can say, Lucas, we hate you. We despise you. They can say all types of vile things, and the First Amendment protects that. They can also do that on the Kansas City, Missouri Twitter page or the official Mayor Lucas Twitter page and all of that, and I think that's what a court would decide if it came down to that.
And as I read it too, basically the Supreme Court gave guidelines to lower courts to make this determination on a more local level.
That's right. I mean, I think that's what you'll see. This will continue to come up, but one thing that I say after a while, and I'm a huge believer in the First Amendment, don't get me wrong, but the dedication of some to harass me and to harass my family and to stalk us, and I have an order of protection against one, has been astounding in some ways in this job. And I don't think that's something that public officials actually have to sign up for. I think it's regrettable. I think every fair person can say that. I come on here to share and communicate with people. You can engage in a lot of ways. But in some areas, I don't think it's appropriate or necessary.
So whether it's you or Donald Trump, you stand by your man Don, that you guys can block on your personal accounts as you see appropriate.
Thing you may not know, my middle name is Donald, and on this one,
is that right?
I stand with the Donald on that. I think they were appropriate. I think Donald Trump can say whatever he wants on real Donald Trump if he reactivates it, and I think that is his First Amendment right.
How about that? Something new today I did not know. Okay, now on a more important note, more pressing note here, Mr. Mayor, we are of course just a week and a half out from this big vote on April 2nd. There's still a lot of questions out there. We got this community benefits agreement. But from your perspective as the mayor, What is the state of negotiations right now between the city and the Royals on this downtown stadium?
There are conspiracy theorists up and down the line. There are not negotiations right now between the city of Kansas City and the Kansas City Royals or Chiefs. We have talked to them on many occasions. I get a chance to visit with them all the time. I expect the next time I may see some of them is on opening day, which is hard to believe, but next Thursday. And that's really it. Everything's kind of frozen for this vote. But to, answer a question that's not asked, I was thinking about this morning, there are some things that are obvious. I'm going to ask everybody to consider this, and I don't know if this says where I'll go or not. When I think about other American cities, I was reading about Oakland, California. Oakland used to have 3 professional teams that played within the boundaries of Oakland. Pretty soon they will have 0. And a particular question I have is, do you think Oakland is better off today without the Golden State Warriors who moved across the bay to San Francisco than they were before? I think if you think doesn't matter, Oakland's doing great, although crime's gone up and there's some other challenges, then sure, you say, we don't care if the Chiefs go to Kansas. We think they'll stay in the market. What the heck? That's all good. That's one question. For the many other people out there who say, well, these are billions we could put into all these other issues, ask yourself this. Jackson County, for about 30 years, has had the community-backed anti-drug tax. The goal of that, from DA Claire McCaskill and others on down, was that we would reduce violent crime and criminal narcotics activity in Jackson County. After 30 years of us paying that sales tax for a public good, theoretically, are we safer? Is this a community that's more free from narcotics or not? And I think both of those things start to push me a certain way. The other thing I think about is this, and I see all the people on social media, you do too, which is there's tons of time to renegotiate. They can figure this out. Everybody sits down and has an open, transparent thing. It is obvious to any person in the world that the marriage between our county executive, Frank White, and the Kansas City Royals is irretrievably broken. If there were a divorce counselor out there, a divorce lawyer would say, guys, I don't think this is going to work out. And so do you have great confidence that after rejecting this, everybody's going to say, oh, shucks, we figured it all out. This is going to be wonderful. Everything's fair and what have you. So I think of those 3 things, which I think are pretty undebatable, that I don't think Oakland's better off without the Warriors, let alone losing the A's and the Raiders, that just putting more public money into the till for the county to figure out over the next generation is going to actually work out. And that I don't know if we'll be able to actually negotiate better deals suggests that, maybe we need to think long and hard before rejecting this. And that's just a thought.
No, certainly a lot of thoughts in there. So you're saying though, that there have been no negotiations with you, the city, and the Royals. But at a meeting last night, Adam Sachs, he's the legal guy for the team. He was talking about positive conversations with you guys.
Yeah, they talk about positive conversations all the time. Here's the thing. What they need to do, I'll just, I'll let it all be open. Because, again, every conspiracy theorist ever, and I get every reason why somebody who's running a campaign would talk about positive conversations. What the Royals would need to do, right, to build a stadium in the city is to vacate streets. We currently have no application as to what a street vacation looks like or anything like that. If they're looking for any tax abatements or incentives, we would need further discussion on that. And none of those things are done right now. I'm not saying that for ill or for good or what have you. What I'm saying is that there is no active discussion until after this vote happens. If the vote is successful, then I imagine, yes, we start, and I would, to be fair to the Royals, I would say we restart any number of conversations around, all right, what are you looking to build? What do we think is acceptable? What do we not think is acceptable? How does it relate to our bridge cap? How does it do all those sorts of things? If it fails, then I imagine there are a myriad of different discussions of what happens. But to sit here right now, I mean, I say hi to them. I talk to them mainly about the campaign. But no, I don't think that we're not in a conversation about a community benefit agreement. We're not in a conversation necessarily on the street vacations and other issues. And I'm not saying that to undermine anyone. I'm just saying that we're going to see what the people decide in 10 days. And then I think we're going to respond accordingly as Kansas City.
And then what about Port KC?
I would think that, and I appoint the board of Port KC, I would think that they're in the same position. Mm-hmm. You know, we have and we hear conversations and ideas all the time, but the last renderings I saw on the new Royal Stadium were the same renderings that everybody else saw. And so that's the latest. It's, you know, there has been no new change that Lucas has gotten some deal from the Royals that agrees not to jump Oak Street or that does something else. I would love to have done so. But no, I think we're in a position where we are actually kind of in a wait and see as well, to the extent there have been ongoing negotiations and true negotiations. I think that's existed with some ones at Jackson County. I saw some stories and coverage about that yesterday, but I think Kansas City, Missouri government, while certainly always welcoming further discussion, is going to see how this vote goes, and then from there we'll see how we have to respond.
Mayor Lucas is on KCMO Talk Radio. So this community benefits agreement that the teams emailed Jackson County about in the last couple of days, I mean, you're an attorney. If you were a legislator receiving that email, which doesn't even have the CBA attached to it, how would you feel about this being, as it was pushed by some legislators on social media, a binding agreement? As an attorney, would you consider that a binding agreement?
I mean, look, I pass the bar and all of that, and usually some of our legal standards are to not mislead at all. I mean, I don't see it as a legally binding agreement. Now, perhaps the view of the world is that it is something where parties have made representations and that there are certain things you can do to not approve any other deals if they were to mislead you about that one. So I can see that it's as close as you can get, perhaps, is the representation. But, I'm not sure of the legal binding effect until, of course, you have the signatures and all those sorts of things in an actual vote by the county legislature. So, I mean, it's progress. I believe it to be progress. Pete, you and I have talked about this a lot of times. There might be some difference. There would be definite different steps I would have made on a lot of these steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, I would have thought the Crossroads were an important and viable place. I would have sat down with all of the people of the Crossroads, all of them, not just the landlords, but the others, and said, I think there are deals we can work out. Can we come to legal terms fully before the election? Probably not, but here's where we're going to be. And I might have tipped them off even before this announcement was made. Would have done that. I probably would have announced any number of things earlier. I would have started negotiating with the county legislature vastly earlier, once the county executive was giving signals like a year ago that he was probably not budging from certain positions. But, I think we're coming down to the moment where you need to look, people need to get to a yes or no, which is a fairly black or white decision. I think the yes or no speaks more to the continuation of both professional sports teams in Jackson County / Kansas City. And I think that's probably where folks are going to make decisions. While I would love as well to Monday morning quarterback and maybe the Thursday after the Tuesday election, we'll sit here and be like, man, there were so many things they should have done separately. But, looking forward, I think we need to make sure we're coming to decisions.
Being the political creature that you are naturally, what do you make of just the way politics makes strange bedfellows when you've got KC tenants in agreement with libertarian think tanks on this project in particular?
This is exactly how, for the Kansas Cityans who were here then, and maybe you weren't, Pete, but I know you're up to date on our history. This is exactly how Mark Funkhauser got elected mayor years ago. For those who don't remember, Mark Funkhauser elected mayor in 2007 because everybody kind of said, Kay Barnes, the then mayor, you did too much. We were building Power and Light District. We were building the then Sprint Center. There was a lot of investment downtown, which I think has accrued to the community's benefit. But people said, we need to just focus on the basics. And that was largely a progressive, primarily a white progressive, alliance with more conservative to libertarian forces in this city. And that's how you got him. And then 4 years later, the man couldn't get through a primary. I think this is just a nature of politics in American cities. But I think it speaks to a few things, one of which is a lackluster nature and some efforts relating to this not just campaign, but broader rollout, the misfortunes and the discussions with Jackson County and beyond and the executive. But I think it also speaks to, kind of this growing populism in the world, which is and I get it, it's kind of the Robin Hood approach. So anti the wealthy, and libertarians believe the way you do that, although there are quite a few very wealthy libertarians, is that you eliminate taxes broadly for almost everyone, right, that you allow production to create any number of things. And then from the more socialist perspective, and I think many of these people wouldn't mind being called socialists, there's this view that actually our taxes should all go to ensuring, strong welfare state for everyone. even if it seems to be more interventionist in ways than I think a lot of us may be comfortable with. That's what you're seeing. It's really weird, but I guess it makes us a little more European right now. I feel like we're voting in like a Danish or a German election or something.
Well, it is, I think, one of the most intriguing elections that I've been a part of in my several years doing this. And it's going to be fun to see how it plays out the next 10 days, Mr. Mayor. By the way, do you have in the next 30 seconds, you got a Final Four, you got a bracket filled out yet?
Man, no. With as bad as our local teams have been playing, I just want, we'll see how far they go in the Big 12 tournament. The NCAA tournament. But good luck to Iowa State. Whatever. They're kind of the bells of the ball right now for the Big 12. So I wish them well.
And don't be surprised if after your admission this morning you get a few Quinton Donalds while you're rocking around Kansas City. That's entirely possible.
The Donald is at it, exactly.
That's right. All right, Mr. Mayor, we'll do it again next week. Thank you for the time.
Yep, have a great weekend.
All right, you too. That is Quinton Lucas on KCMO.